Noah decides that he's going to plant a vineyard, right? And as the cultivator that he is, he plants a vineyard and he takes a bit of a sip out of his own product and he decides to get drunk. So after I just bigged him up, Noah, thank you very much, he decides to go and get himself drunk. But isn't that so amazing as well? Just the fact that God can do so many powerful things with us even when we fail so miserably. Like, this was the same Noah that literally a couple of chapters ago was the only man that God found righteous. Was the only man that he said, I see value in you and your family and your line. Out of you, future generations are going to come. You're going to build the boat. You're going to build the ark. All the animals are going to come with you and you're going to be the first one to populate this world. Go free, multiply. Isn't it so funny that that same Noah is now a few chapters later, literally a couple pages, just skip a couple of pages later, and he's a drunkard. But the grace, literally, but the grace. Isn't it crazy sometimes that we think about how much of a mess we can be and yet God still sees us worthy? Because sometimes I get shocked. I get so shocked that even me with my nonsense that goes through my mind or just my own desires on my own body, my own flesh that likes to try and take control, even with my own nonsense, God still sees me as worthy to use me. It's so insane and it blows my mind every single time. But we have to thank God that God doesn't wait for us to become perfect before he uses us. And literally, I remember, praying that earlier. And it's just, as I go on and as I grow and as I learn, it's becoming more and more real. The fact that, wow, like you actually have to think and deep. Like, God seriously doesn't wait for us to become perfect before he uses us. All those great characters that we see in the Bible, all those amazing people that we see, at some point, something went kind of wrong. Someone fell short. Someone did something that, again, backtracked from the covenant. But we thank God that God gives us and keeps giving us chances. And he says, you know what? I know you're not perfect. I know right now you're not where you want to be because you seem to have an image in your head about where you should be before God can use you and take you to that next level. Not even necessarily just in ministry, maybe in your own job. Maybe in the book that you're trying to write, the business that you're trying to start, whatever it is. In your mind, you have this image of where I need to be. Maybe I need to get a couple more qualifications. Maybe I need to go and get a bit more training, even though you've been on like 10 million training courses. Maybe I need to go and talk to 10 more apostles, even though you had a conversation with 50 apostles already. Maybe I need to go and talk to this. I need to go and do that. I need to go and do this. You have an image of who you think you need to be before you actually encounter God and he does the work that he needed to do. But God doesn't wait for you to be ready. He makes you ready. He gets you ready. He allows you to be ready as you go in the process. He says, you know what? I'm going to take you as you are. I didn't say come as you think you need to be. I didn't say come as you pretend to be on social media and everyone else and your friends and your family who might think that you're Little Miss Perfect or Mr. Perfect or whatever it is. He doesn't say I'm going to wait for you to become that perfect image that you post online. But guess what? I'm going to take you as you are, in your mess, in your nonsense, in the discrepancies that you seem to do in your own life, even with your lies, even with your nonsense, even with you sleeping around, or even with you doing whatever it is that you are doing. He says, I'm still going to take you because I have a greater plan for you. And you might think that you are able to clean up your own mess on your own, but guess what? You can't do it. You'll be there forever, going around in the same cycle, year after year after year after year, hoping that you'll be able to clean yourself up. But he's saying, don't worry about that. I don't need you to clean yourself up. That's my job. All I need you to do is be ready and accepting. All I need you to do is open up your heart enough for me to be able to step in so that I can do what is necessary. So again, God is always testing character. And we go into this place in chapter 9 where Noah gets drunk. He gets so ridiculously drunk that he actually ends up in his tent butt naked, right? And I'm going to read from about verse 20. Yeah, so it says verse 20. So Genesis chapter 9, verse 20. Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of its wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders. Then they walked in backward and covered their father's naked body. Their faces were turned the other way so that they would not see their father naked. Now you might be thinking, okay, what the hell has that got to do with anything? One thing that I realized when reading that was, again, character. Ham had a choice in that moment. He goes into this tent, he sees his father naked. He had a choice. Either go and cover his father or expose him. What did he go and do? He went and exposed him. Again, two choices. Two choices that many of us get, and that might be metaphorically in so many different circumstances of our own lives. Either we cover or we expose. Either we say, do you know what? While maybe the whole world doesn't see what we're doing in the background, I'm going to do it anyway. Or we step out and we say, do you know what? The whole world needs to see what I'm doing. The whole world needs to applaud me. The whole world needs to know that I am this and I am that. Two types of people in this world. Either you cover or you expose. And one of the things that I came to understand when I was reading this was that God is so intrinsic in his design of the word that he shows us the results of both. So he showed us, he said that while Ham saw his father naked and he went and told his brothers outside, Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders. They walked in backwards and covered their father's naked body. They went against the grain. They didn't look for his father or for somebody else to pat them on the shoulder. He didn't look for Ham, the other brother, to tell them what they should and shouldn't be doing. They didn't wait for someone to co-sign them. Their character was shown in that moment. They did what they were supposed to do. And then later on in verse 24 it says, when Noah awoke from his wine and found out what his younger son had done to him, he said, cursed be Canaan. The lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers. He also said, praise be to the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the slave of Shem. May God extend Japheth's territory. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be the slave of Japheth. Again, the consequences. Two types of people. Either you cover or you expose. You cover or you expose. And guess what? You have a choice to do one or the other. God doesn't say, listen, I'm not going to stop you. You have free will. You do what you want. But just know that every action has a reaction. Everything that you do has consequences. So if you decide that you are going to allow your character to slip, don't worry about it right now, but just know that there are consequences. Noah cursed him. Again, it goes back to what I was saying before about sometimes we think that our actions are only about us. But look at that. He cursed him for generations to come. He said that they will be slaves to his brothers. He said that may God extend Japheth's territory. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be the slave of Japheth. His territory, while one territory was being expanded, the other was being put through turmoil because of one decision that was made. Again, one decision that he might have just felt like, it's just me. It's just going to affect me. It's not my fault that that I did this. It's not my fault that I saw you naked. But again, integrity. Yes, okay, you saw him naked. It wasn't your fault. But what did you do about it? What did you do about it? And maybe that applies to some area of your life. Maybe you were exposed to something that maybe you shouldn't have been exposed to. Maybe you saw something that maybe you shouldn't have seen. Maybe you've experienced something in your life that you wish you never had to experience. But what are you going to do about it? Either you're going to go about covering. And covering, again, remember, doesn't necessarily mean it's about you. The covering that the two other brothers did wasn't about them. It was about their father. Covering doesn't always mean that it's about you. Maybe it's about covering the next generations to come. Covering the young women that maybe have experienced what you've been through. Covering the young men that are going through the situations that you once went through. Covering the people who are walking behind you that don't quite know what to expect. Covering is not necessarily about yourself. It's about the people behind, the generations to come, the people that are exposed to a path that you've already walked in. That's what covering is all about. And then later on, as I was reading more of this word and I was coming to understand more, I came to really understand that sometimes you have to go through the fiery furnace. Sometimes you really, really have to go through the pain and the hurt, the exposure, the stress of everything that you thought was going to break you, that was going to damage you, that was going to stop you from living the life you've always wanted to live. Again, to build character, but also for you to be used by God. Sometimes you have to go through the furnace in order to be functional in the way that God wants you to be. Sometimes you have to go through the furnace before you can allow yourself to truly align with God wants you to be. With God's version of you. Not your own version, but God's own version of you. And that's when I started thinking about another version of sacrifice and what we've been talking about over the past few weeks. And I realized that every time we talk about sacrifice, especially in the Bible, there has to be fire. Every single time. Every time we talk about it, there has to be fire. Sacrifice is not sacrifice unless there is fire. Sacrifice only becomes sacrifice when something has been burnt away. So even, for example, when Noah, when they first came up back on the land after the flood, the first thing that Noah did was he built an altar. And on that altar, they took some of the animals, the clean animals, and they sacrificed it. And it says, again, in Genesis, it talks about how, and to be fair, dotted all around the Bible, it talks about how it was a sweet-smelling aroma to God. But before it could become a sweet-smelling aroma, it had to be burnt. Before it could become the sweet, it had to go through the sour. It had to go through that real transition period. That painful period, that harsh season, again, that kind of wilderness season, before the sacrifice was able to manifest into something that was actually worth something, before it was able to get into something that was of value for those people. Every time in the Bible when someone takes an animal to the altar, the animal is not necessarily the focus. It's the burning part that is the focus. Is the fact that the animal is being sacrificed to release an aroma to God, to indicate that something has been done on earth. To indicate that someone has done something that might not necessarily be normal to all other people, but that has been done because it's necessary for change, necessary again for transition. Sacrifice requires fire. It requires it. And over the past couple of weeks where I've been talking about sacrifice, and I did talk about, those moments where sacrifice isn't pretty. It's not nice. Sacrifice is being beaten up, beaten and bruised. Sacrifice literally is going through seasons of real hardship sometimes. Real hardship, but knowing that God is going to bring you to the other side of it. Knowing that God is going to bring you out of that furnace. Knowing that God is going to bring you out of it and it's going to be a sweet smell at the end of it. There's going to be a sweet aroma. But fire connotes a whole bunch of different things. When you think of fire, you think of so many different things. You might even say that it connotes to passion. To passion. Where has your passion gone? Where has the fire in your belly gone? Where has that thing that gets you up in the morning, that drives you? Again, in whatever industry, whatever field, whatever it is that you're trying to do, where has that fire in your belly gone, that passion? Where has it gone? You can't get to the sweet smelling aroma without that fire. You can't get to the promise without the sacrifice. You can't get to those spaces that you want to get to, those achievements, that success, Those moments where you think, wow, I finally arrived. You can't get to that unless you allow the fire to burn. But it starts with you first. It starts on the inside of you first. Where is your passion? Where is your drive? Where is the thing that allows you to say, do you know what? Even when I don't feel like it, even when it's getting difficult, even when I'm feeling broken, the fire inside of me keeps me going. The fire inside of me doesn't consume me necessarily, but fuels me. It doesn't necessarily take everything from me, but in fact, it ignites something new. Where is that? And one of the things that we also think about when it comes to fire and sacrifice is the fact that it connotes cleansing and purifying. What does your altar look like? The altar of your heart, the altar of your life, what does it look like? Has it been cleansed and purified? Or are there still some things on there that you know you've been keeping on there for quite a long time because you're not quite ready to sacrifice it yet? Is it still piled up with an animal after another animal, after another animal, after another animal that you say, oh my God, I'm bringing this for you. Oh my God, I'm bringing you this for you. But you just haven't lit it up yet. Every day you bring something. Oh God, I'm bringing this. Look at me. Look, I'm bringing sacrifices every single day. But yeah, he's like, but I'm waiting for that sweet smelling aroma. I'm waiting for that smell that indicates that you are willing to let go of something in order for me to give you something new. I'm waiting for that. So what does your altar look like? Has it been cleansed? Has it been purified? Allow yourself to truly go through the fire and not to deny yourself the process. And it's really hard. It's easier said than done. You know, even for myself. I'm speaking for myself as well. It's easier said than done. Because being able to say to yourself, do you know what? I'm going to go through the fire is not an easy thing to do. Just like, again, saying that I'm going to step into the wilderness, again, not an easy thing to do. But all the things that we've been told for generations to run away from could actually be the very things that need to build up our character, to build up that inner part of yourself, so that when it does come to the point of success, or it does come to the point of where you know that you and God have had a discussion about where you're supposed to be, you have been built in a way that you can sustain, even in the midst of whatever it is that's going on when you reach those levels. So even when you're in the fire, remember, it's not going to consume you. It's there to fuel you. So ultimately, with sacrifice and this whole series as we've gone on, if there's anything that I want you to take away from, it's just the fact that sacrifice is not necessarily going to make sense. It doesn't. It doesn't always make sense. It doesn't always look how we had hoped or had thought it was going to look. But God knows exactly why he intended for that sacrifice to be there. Or why he, intended for that sacrifice to be made. So that's the first thing. It's not always going to make sense. It won't. The second thing, that sacrifice is necessary. Remember, sacrifice is about an exchange being made. It's about transition. It's about purifying. It's about moving from one season to another. It's about moving from one space to another. It's about letting go of the old so you can step into the new. So know that sacrifice is necessary. And last but not least, that sacrifice builds character. And in order for you to fill the boots, the position, the authority, to walk in the power of which God has called you to walk in, you have to be able to sacrifice so that your character can be built, so that it can sustain the fire that comes with the sacrifice. And I say it one more time. Through the sacrifice, that fire that's there is not there to consume you. I know it feels like it, but it's not there to consume you. It's just purely there to fuel you. But yeah, that's the word.